My mom unalived my dad, and I was told 3 stories of what happened. 3 different stories, 3 different variations about what happened that night and what led to his unaliving. And I am going to tell you each one of them. This is the story that I was told directly after it happened by my mother. I was told this story by her hours after it happened, within 24 hours after it happened. And in this video, I'll give you some background first. I'll start this with when I found out about my dad being unalived. I was 14 years old. I was staying at a friend's house, less than 5 minutes away from where my family lived. My parents were still married, still lived together, and I have 3 siblings, and we all lived together. Now, I was the only sibling that was in town when this happened. My other siblings were staying with family members, out of town and out of state. And my mom was also out of town, staying with family members. So it was just me and my dad at home. Well, in our hometown. I wouldn't even call it our hometown. So it was just me and my dad in the town where it happened. And there were a few weird things leading up to this, and that I noticed even as a 14-year-old. The first one was that my mom did a few selfless things. She came and picked me and my friend up from out of town and drove us all the way back home. This was about a 3-hour trip. So she drove back and forth a handful of times. And I can get into more detail of that if you want me to, but for now we're just gonna get to the story because I only have 10 minutes. When I found out, my mom was 3 hours away in a different town. Well, so I thought. And my dad was down the street from me. So the night before, me and my friends had gone to a movie. It got out later than expected, and I was supposed to go home that night. But after the movie got out, I called my dad to see if he wanted to come pick us up and take us home, or if he wanted me to just stay at my friend's house because of how late it had gotten and that I would go home in the next morning. So he said, you know, it is pretty late. Why don't you stay there? Stay with your friend and I'll come pick you up in the morning. And I love you and miss you, and I'm excited to see you. And when I pick you up, we'll go to breakfast. Now, I had been home for a few days, but one weird thing that happened is when my mom took me home, instead of just dropping me off, she told me to run inside, grab clothes. I don't even think she went inside. I really think she just had me run in, told me to hurry up, go get clothes, go get whatever I needed, because I needed to leave. We needed to leave before my dad got home and saw us. And she said this was because he was mad at me. She made it out to seem like she was protecting me. And she said, your dad is upset with you because he got your report card in the mail and you made a bad grade. And if you see him, he will ground you for the summer. Now, this immediately was very weird to me because I didn't make bad grades. And even if I had made a bad grade, my dad wasn't the type to ground me for months. Okay, that just wasn't what it was like at our house. And so I knew that was kind of strange, but you know, she was very adamant and I listened to her because I was only 14 years old and I didn't want to be grounded for the summer. And I figured, wow, my dad must be really mad. I must have made a really bad grade if he's like that upset with me that she's telling me to avoid him. So she takes me to my friend's house, and I hadn't talked to my dad in about a day, but because I felt so weird about ignoring him, I was like, okay, I'm not doing this. That is extremely weird for her to tell me to do. I feel awkward about it, so I'm gonna talk to him. And so the next morning I start calling my dad, because I wake up and I'm like, okay, it's time for him to come get me so we can go to breakfast. Now, this is when his phone doesn't get answered. I call the house phone, doesn't get answered. I call his work phone, doesn't get answered. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'll just wait a few minutes, right? He'll call me right back. And he doesn't call me right back. And it gets to the point where I'm starting to get very hungry. Me and my friend decided to walk to this little store that was right down the road from her. And we were just gonna get some like breakfast foods at this little like corner store gas station thing. And as we're walking there, We've only made it a few houses down from where she lives, and I see, and it's like a small cul-de-sac street, and I see a truck drive by, and in the truck, I happen to see one of my uncles, and my first reaction is, oh my God, my uncle's here, like, they must be surprising me, like, this is so weird, you know, they're from 3 hours away, what are they doing here? And the truck stops, and I start walking back to it. And then that's when I realize something is very wrong, because I see my mother in the passenger seat, like doubled over, just crying, just crying. And my uncle gets out of the truck, and he's very like somber and quiet and serious. And there's no smiles, there's no nothing. It's just him staring at me. And then my mom gets out of the passenger seat, walks around the back of the car, and she's just crying. And I've never seen her cry this way. And she's like squatted down, crying hysterically. Like, it was just bizarre, because I don't think I had ever seen that emotion from my mom before. Like, I don't really remember her crying, but regardless, she was at this point. My uncle starts hugging me, and I start saying, okay, what's going on? What's wrong? What happened? I didn't for a second think that my dad was gone. That just doesn't cross your mind when there's no reason for it to. And that's when my uncle is hugging me, and he says, your dad is dead. In that moment, my body just full on collapses, and he is trying to hold me up. And all I can muster out between like the shock, the pure shock I'm in, is how. I just say the word how. And he says back to me, he was SHOT. And in that moment, my whole world just like collapsed. Because what do you mean that my dad was unalived in a violent way? What are you saying to me right now? And I was just gone from my body. I was just gone. But you know what? In that exact moment when I was told that my dad was gone and that he had been whatever, I said, who? And he said, we don't know. But in that moment, I knew that my mom had something to do with it. Now, in that moment, I only have a few seconds. In that moment, I did not for a second think that my mom did it. I just thought she was a roundabout reason for it happening. That something she got into caused someone to do that to my dad. And so then they had me go into my friend's house, grab my stuff. They had me go into my house, grab my stuff, and they take me, my uncle and my mom, take me 3 hours back to where I thought my mom had been the whole time. And it was me, my uncle, and my mom. I was in the front seat of my uncle's truck, and then he was driving, and my mom was in the back seat. The whole way to my family's house, my mom is just back there silent, sobbing or silent. I don't think there's any in between. I don't remember anything she said. I do feel like there was a phone call at one point, but it was very short, and I think it was from her best friend, but I can't quite remember because it was a blur. All I did was zombie stare the whole way home, trying to process what I had just been told. And anyway, we walk into my family's house a few hours later when we get there, and everyone's staring at me. You know, I have a few aunts and uncles already there, and they're just all around the kitchen island, and you can tell that they're just in shock, and they're just so confused at what the heck happened. And anyway, they just look at me with these eyes and these facial expressions that for the next 10 years of my life, that's how people looked at me. Anyway. Okay, the first version of what happened. My sister gets home from out of state. She was visiting family out of state at the time. She gets home, and me and my sister are the oldest siblings. My sister's a few years older than me, and then I have 2 little brothers. And my mom takes us into the guest bedroom of my aunt and uncle's house. And we're sitting on the bed. And sorry. We're sitting on the bed and she starts talking. And she starts telling us what happened. And this is when the absolute, this isn't when, let me tell you this. I told you in the last video that when I found out that he had been the manner of death, when he had been pewed, I hate that I can't say the words, I knew that my mom had something to do with it. I thought she was the reason why it happened. I did not think she did it. When we had to go to my family home and they told me grab some stuff, we're going back to out of town where your extended family lives. We walked in and my mom, we were by the bar, like the kitchen bar, and she starts hugging me. And she just is saying, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And she's sobbing and she's holding me tight. And that is the moment that I felt the anger in me, this specific new form of anger in me, like I had never felt before towards her. And I absolutely hated her in that moment. And I remember hating myself in that moment because I'm sitting there hugging her, telling her, it's okay. It's okay. It's not your fault. It's okay. It's not your fault. And if you have been in an abusive relationship with a parent who's a narcissist and who is very emotionally and mentally and psychologically abusive, you will know that you do things to please them, to make sure they're okay, to offset their emotions, to make sure that you're small so that they're okay and they don't take their anger out on you or their frustration. And that's what I was doing in that moment. And I told myself in that moment, I will never do this to myself again. I will never abandon myself for her again, because I'm sitting there hugging her, comforting her, and the whole time I think she's the reason why my dad is dead. And that was just a turning point in my life. No more, never again. And I've kept to that. I've never once done that ever again. All right, flash forward, we're in my family's home. I just had to throw that in there because I needed you to know where my mindset was when I'm being told this story by my mom. So we're in the bedroom, me, my mom, and my sister, and she starts talking about what happened. And it's already a little bit like jumbled and I'm kind of trying to follow. And she says that my parents fought all the freaking time, like very badly. That was no secret, at least to me and my siblings. And she told us that my dad had called her to work things out and that she went home to talk to him and that he had called her late at night and that he wanted to talk to her about their relationship and working things out. And so that she drove in the middle of the night 3 hours to talk to him in the middle of the night. Already, I'm just kind of like, okay, that's a little bit odd, but all right, still listening. And then she tells us that she's driving home and she sees a car flashing their lights behind her. Sorry, I'm trying to like finish my makeup, but like telling the story while I do it is almost impossible. But she's telling me that, or me and my sister, that there's this truck that starts flashing their lights at her as she's driving home, and that she realizes it's my dad. She sees it's my dad, so she pulls over on the side of the road and to see how, like, what he wants, how she knows he's there. Already a gap. How would he know where you are? This was before cell phones were a big thing. Like, there was texting, yes, but it wasn't anything crazy. No location shared, no anything like that. And she pulls over, he pulls over. She gets out of the car and she sees a man in his passenger seat that she says scared her so bad. And she said that there were drugs involved, that my dad was like doing drugs and that we didn't know that, but that he was doing drugs and this man in the car was like his drug dealer. Oh, I'm not supposed to say that. I hope they don't cut this. Anyway, so that is when my anger levels rise again, because that's like not who my dad was. My dad was very safe. He did not do substances. He did not even have alcohol in the house. Like, he just was very clean because he had 4 children that he loved dearly, and they didn't want us getting into anything. And so when she started saying that my dad was on drugs and that he had a substance dealer in the truck with him, I was so mad at her because I knew she was lying. And because I had just experienced that where I was hugging her and comforting her, I couldn't do it again because I couldn't do it again. And I kind of blew up on her and I said, I know you're lying. I know my dad did not do substances, and I don't know why you're lying, but that is not the truth of what happened. And until you want to tell me the truth of what happened, I do not want to hear anything about what happened because that is not true. And she was shocked. I remember her face. She was just stunned because I think she thought whatever she told to me and my sister, we would just believe blindly. But she didn't realize how much that we had both been picking up, how much we had both been picking up on leading up to that. Even though we were children, children are not stupid. So I told her that I didn't want to hear it. Now, this is the same story that she told the police when they took her in for questioning. She told, her story was that, you know, her and my dad had been fighting, that he called her in the middle of the night because he wanted to work things out with her. So then she's like, okay, well, I'll do that. And she drove 3 hours to talk to him. On her way home, she sees his truck lights flashing at her, behind her. So she pulls over and she walks up to his truck and she notices that there's a man in his truck in the middle of the night. And this man, for whatever reason, scares her so badly that she runs back to her car. When she does that, she said that she drove off, and the last thing she sees is this man chasing my dad on the side of the road. Okay, I'm kind of struggling because I'm having to merge what she told me with what she told the police that night because I didn't let her finish the whole story. But she told them that the last thing she saw as she was driving off was that that man was chasing my dad and that she was so scared of them because she saw a pew-pew in my dad's hand. And she made this up. She made it sound like it was a substance deal, but also that she was getting set up and that he had been on substances, my dad, and that she was afraid of him. So she told me and my sister a story that showed my dad more innocent and not coming after her. And then she told the police the story that she was afraid of my dad and that she thought she was being set up. So she drives off. She sees this man chasing my dad. And then she starts going home. And then she realizes, I should probably go check on him. So she says she drives back to where my dad's truck was and that she couldn't find him. And then that is when the police pull up and find her and my dad on the side of the road. That is the story she told, that it was a different man, and she was basically blaming a man that was in the passenger seat for my dad's unaliving. This is a shorter video because there's more details, but that's the gist of it. And then I want to get back to version that she told me just 5 years ago. So what she said is that she had a surgery a few years prior to it happening. And this surgery made her very, very depressed. So she just had the surgery. She's taking the medicine, and she becomes dependent on them, gets worse and worse and spirals. My dad is aware of this behavior. And this specific night when he was unalived, he called her that night, she said. This is what she told me in a letter 5 years ago. And when I get that letter, I'll read it to you. He told me that my dad called her that night and that he was irate, that he was very upset because he found her stash of substances and that he had been telling her to quit. And over the phone, he told her, I called your doctor and said to stop giving you more medicine. If you keep doing this, you won't be able to see the children anymore and you have to stop, you have a problem. And my mom said that him calling and telling her this made her so upset and so angry because she was so reliant on these substances that she drove 3 hours from our family's house out of town, her family's house out of town, to where we were living at the time, where my dad lived, to see if he really found them, because she told me, no, there's no way he actually found those. So I'm gonna go see if he did. She drives the 3 hours to see if he found them. She went to her work and picked up the GUN to go buy the substances. She picked up the GUN for protection from buying the substances. And she said her mindset was, I'll show him, I can just go get more. So she goes and gets the GUN, she goes and gets the substances, and then she sees my dad flashing his lights at her, and she pulls over to the side of the road. And when she pulls over, she says that he comes up to the car window where she's at, and she shows him, look, I just got all of these. What are you going to do about it? I can just get more. It doesn't matter if you find them and take them away from me. I'll get more. And she says that he hit them out of her hand, and like, she's sitting in the driver's side, she puts her hand out the window, and he hits them out of her hand out of anger. And he starts walking off, and he says something to the effect of, you are not going to see the children again. That's what she said, he said. And I have my issues with that and her. Anyway, we'll get into this later. But so she says that, or he says that, and that it upsets her so much, you know, because she's such a great mother and she can't stand to not see her children. Like, that's what she wants me to feel reading this, I think, which is crazy. She says it upsets her so much that he talks about the kids, that she fires a warning shot into the air, which is just crazy, as he's walking away. So he hears that shot, and he turns around to her and says, you're effing crazy, don't come around the kids, or something like that. And she says that's what made her snap, and she did it one time, and then after that one time she blacked out, doesn't remember any other pews because she did it multiple times, and that when she came to and woke back up, my dad's head was in her lap, and she was, I guess, crying, comforting him. Now, if you want to psychoanalyze that story, please do, because there are a few things that stick out to me. One, she tried to make it seem like she was out of her head on substances, that she was having a hard time. Two, she tried to make my dad look more innocent so that I actually believed her story, because I knew who my dad was. I know he wasn't doing some of the things she said he was the first time she told the story. She also made it seem like the reason she did it was because she loved her kids and me so much that when my dad threatened to take us away from her, she snapped and went crazy, and that's why she did it. That is just so demented. And then the final freaking whatever, I have to be careful talking on here. The final thing was, oh, when I came to, his head was in my lap. Like, that's supposed to do something to me? Is that supposed to make me feel better? Is that supposed to make me think, oh, you really cared about him, that you were like so distraught that you did it? No. Because one thing I haven't mentioned is that after she did it, she put substances all over his body. So she tells me that she came to, his head's laying in her lap, basically gone, and that she's sobbing. But she does not talk about the part where she puts substances all over his body and all over his truck. She just leaves that out of the letter, like that's not important. And it is important, because that shows her evilness, right? I don't like that word, but it just shows she just lied. She just left that out, and this was 5 years ago, y'all. It's not like I'm a child anymore. So that's the story she told me 5 years ago. Now, we are going to go to part 3, where I can tell you the story I have since learned by investigating the case, reading the documents, reading the evidence, and reading the statements from the police that found them, arrested her, and questioned her. So this is the version that I have picked up over time from hearing my family talk about different parts of what happened that night. Ever since I started this journey of finding the truth for myself, this is the most accurate, evidence-based story of what actually happened that night. And I'm still tracking down different documents and different pieces of evidence and statements from people back then. But here's what I know so far of what the police think happened. Let me think about how to start this. The first version of the story I was told is what I think actually happened. And there is still more I'm finding out, but I will tell you the gist. She drove those 3 hours from our family's house in the middle of the night and went to her work and got the thingy. She went in the middle of the night to her work and got the pew-pew and called my dad and told him that she had car trouble and where she was. And he, of course, in the middle of the night, puts his shoes on, hurries out to help his stranded wife, who he thought was 3 hours away. So he goes to help her, and as he's helping her, she has the thing wrapped up in a shirt so that he can't see it. And he goes to her car to look at whatever is wrong with it. And I think she said it was her tire. I always grew up thinking it was probably like the hood, but now I know it was probably her tire. And while he's inspecting it, that is when she does the first pew. And then she keeps doing it until he is gone. After he's gone, I hope. I don't know if she did this while he was going or after he was gone, but she starts planting substances in his pockets, around him, in his truck, and on his things. And I have seen these pictures of them in his truck, and I have seen the crime scene drawing, so I know exactly where everything was found. And then her plan was to go and drop off the GUN back at her employer's. That's a whole other story of why she was able to get it there. And then her plan was, I think I finally figured this out, was to go home and stage that scene at our house to make it look like he was having substance issues, because that is what she had been telling people. Luckily for my family, a police officer drove by and stopped to see if the 2 cars pulled over on the side of the street in the middle of the night needed help, and that is when they found my mom and my deceased father. And then she was going to drive back 3 hours to our family's house and be there when they woke up like nothing happened. She even left a note at their house saying, hey, I went out for breakfast, for like donuts and coffee or whatever. Be back later. So that if they woke up, they would see, oh, okay, she's gone, but it's because she's doing this and she'll be back. Now, the police being at the scene after it happened threw that whole plan off. And that explains why she was able to pick me up the next morning with my uncle and tell me the first version of the story that I was told. So obviously there are so many more details. I'm going through all of the documents to figure out answers to all of these questions I've had for forever, right? So I'm going through all of the case documents to find out things that I've wondered for years. And I didn't go into too much detail because I kind of wanted this to be a broad overview of just the stories I was told.